Welcome back to the Mandarin Blueprint Podcast. My name is Phil Crimmins, and for those of you watching the video, you'll notice that I'm in a different environment, and that's because I went to Chiang Mai, Thailand for the next few weeks to avoid the increasing restrictions that have been happening around China around the novel coronavirus. It's not that I'm worried about getting the virus necessarily. It's pretty unlikely statistically that I would get it, and even if I did as a young, healthy guy, it's unlikely that I would it would be fatal, but nonetheless, it's the restrictions that they're putting on life and how easy it is to move around and do regular sort of social activities has just become quite difficult, and so I decided to get out of Dodge for a little bit and wait it out here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And hey, it's not so bad to be in a tropical place and hang out where there's lots of sunshine, which is quite different from Chengdu in the winter. It's usually quite gray and sort of cold and humid, which is sort of somewhat of a bad combo to be cold and humid because the cold just sort of sticks in the air. So I'm happy to be here, and ultimately I'd actually like to express a great deal of gratitude to all of you who are supporting Mandarin Blueprint by either participating in the community, by obviously those of you who are on the course, and those of you who engage with our content, because the reality is that coming here has not really hurt my work. It's not made, it's not been a big impact in the sense that, a year ago I couldn't leave Chengdu and expect to be able to still play my part in the company without us, losing significant income. And because of the, great participation from all of you, I feel incredibly grateful to be able to say that we're doing fine. It's things are going well. I'm able to get a lot of work done. We're still getting more people on the course, and it's actually right now we're doing quite well. So I know that Luke and I are both very grateful, but I feel particularly grateful because I was even able to leave my home situation under circumstances that aren't exactly, entirely voluntary, and yet I'm still able to thrive and function. It's not even like I'm slowing down by being here. It's actually kind of given me some extra inspiration. And so just thank you to everyone. You're excellent. You're great at engaging with the course, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to do so. And I thought I would share something with you guys that I came across while walking through Chiang Mai, because this is an interesting time. It's a scary time a little bit with the epidemic happening, but we're also seeing some of the triumph of the human spirit to some degree in this time. And so I came across this banner that was outside of a hotel here in Chiang Mai, and it was a message from Thai people to Chinese people, and I thought that it would be worth sharing. So I put the picture in the show notes below, and I will now go through it, and there's just 4 lines, and I'll just read each line and then tell you how they translated it. So if you look at the picture, it's got a Thai flag and a Chinese flag and a couple of hearts in between, and the first line says, 向中国人民致以深切慰问. And so this line means, so whenever you see 向, it means towards. So like I'm directing this towards, and then it's 中国人民, the people of China. And then this next bit is quite a written way of saying as we have talked about before, there's written Chinese and there's spoken Chinese. This next bit is more of a written Chinese phrase, but 致以深切慰问. So 致以 is a way of saying to extend or express, and then 深切 is our deepest, 慰问, sympathies or condolences. So as you can imagine, that's sort of a more formal way. We'd like to extend our deepest sympathies towards the people of China. So that's the first line. And then the next line, 真诚希望亲人们早日战胜疫情，度过难关. So this line, 真诚希望, truly hope. We sort of implied that we truly hope. And then 亲人们. So that's a way of saying our relatives or our brothers and sisters. So 亲 is the Chinese character for relatives, and interestingly enough, it also means to kiss, but kind of like not necessarily in a romantic way. Like you could kiss somebody on the cheek and you just gave them, it's like it's a little 亲, and so it's sort of something you recognize as you'd kiss your relatives on the cheek, that type of thing. And so 亲人 is just somebody who you consider to be, even if they're not literally a relative, they're close enough to you that you call them that, and then they add the men because it's plural. Obviously, there's lots of Chinese people. So, and then 早日, that means in early days, 战胜, so like to defeat, and 战 means like war. So it's like a war victory. So like 战胜, like to have victory over the 疫情, which is the epidemic. It's sort of the that's the way you say epidemic, 疫情, and the 疫 has that character component in it that explains that's like for illness, so it makes sense that would be there. And then the final bit here is 度过难关, and that is a very common way of expressing the idea of getting through a tough time. So 度过 means to get through or pass through, but it's usually in relation to something that's somewhat arduous. And then in 难关, it's like the rough time that they're going through. So the translation for this whole sentence would be, we truly hope our brothers and sisters will soon defeat this epidemic and get through this difficult time. Then the final bit here, 中泰一家亲, 我们爱中国, 中国加油. So 中泰, this is a great way of just, you can do this with lots of different countries. You take the main character from the two countries and you just say both of them, and that indicates the relationship between the two countries. So here we have 中泰, so 中国, 泰国, so China, Thailand, 中泰. And you could say 中美, which would mean China, America. You've been seeing that a lot with the trade war stuff going on. And then so it says 中泰一家亲. So that's saying we're one family, Thailand and China. We love China, 我们爱中国, 中国加油, which just means you can do it. It's like basically encouragement, and there's this actually beautiful video that you might have seen going around social media of the people of Wuhan in their apartments, but they're in their high-rise apartments and they're standing on their balconies and they're kind of yelling out to each other, 武汉加油, and they're kind of just sort of saying, hey, we can get through this, we can do it, we can defeat this epidemic. And just to run across this while walking down the street once again struck me that there are certain things that we can all get on board with as, you know, sort of being against. There's no people who are for an epidemic. It's something we can all get behind, trying to, fight and express solidarity with. So that was really great to see, and I thought I just wanted to share that with you guys. So hope that you found that interesting. And again, you can check out the picture in the show notes. Next, I'm recording this on February 12th, and by the time this comes out, it'll be a little bit after Valentine's Day. But Luke actually wrote up a little sort of blurb about how he's very grateful for learning Chinese on Valentine's Day, because he, Luke's, he's having a baby now, and he's got married since we started the course, and it's to his Chinese wife, and he's gotten to know his Chinese relatives, and it's all because he's been able to speak Chinese. And so he wrote up this letter, and I'm going to read it to all of you because I found it to be quite moving. And knowing Luke, I'm sure that he would rather, he's kind of a humble guy, so he'd probably not want to read it himself, but I thought I would read it. So this is Luke's thoughts on Valentine's Day. So he says, "So, Valentine's Day is coming up, and it got me thinking about how much Mandarin has impacted my life. When I came to China in 2013, I headed straight for Chengdu, Sichuan province. I met my wife on my very first day here, and we've pretty much been together ever since. Her first impression of me was my voice. She said I sounded like Chris Martin from Coldplay. She loved how I pronounced my very basic Mandarin to complain about having to pay for mayonnaise while ketchup was free. Despite being the manager of the restaurant, she was still impressed. We connected over my love of her language, and as the years passed and my Mandarin skills developed, we were able to communicate with growing depth. I asked her to marry me in a park in Beijing, overlooking the Summer Palace. We got married in her hometown 1 month later, and her entire family celebrated with us by force-feeding me baijiu and mountains of food. I was able to connect instantly with her hilarious sisters and brothers-in-law, kind and caring aunts and uncles, and her selfless mother. None of them had ever met anyone who wasn't Chinese before, but because I had a firm grasp of their mother tongue, they made me feel like I had always been a part of the family. Her grandfather is almost 100% deaf, but thanks to my ability to read and write Chinese, I was able to hold many silent conversations with him, in which I learned all about his fascinating tales of life in Shanghai during the Cultural Revolution. I was able to give a moving speech in Mandarin, in which I promised her father, the kindest man I have ever met, that I would make lots of strong grandchildren for him and take care of his daughter. I was able to whisper kind words of comfort to the man in his last moments as he passed away 3 months later. Next month, I'll be fulfilling my promise to him as we bring our first child into the world. We're going to call him George, or Qiaozhi. There are many reasons to learn Mandarin, and I'm certainly not saying that the only reason, or even the main reason, is to build connections with future loved ones. All I can say is that getting to know my wife and her family has been the highlight of my life, and I wouldn't have been able to do so without investing the time necessary for proficiency in Mandarin. Much love, Luke. And, I found this to be quite a moving thing. I've known Luke and Nana for many years now, and I'm so happy for them and their, marriage and their upcoming baby. And of course, hopefully they'll see me as Uncle Phil, like from the Fresh Prince. But it's absolutely amazing what you can discover when you actually are able to learn Mandarin to the degree that Luke has, and it's. And he's right, it doesn't have to be the only reason, but man, it's incredible that you could find somebody that you not only fall in love with, but that you can build an entire life with after you learn a language. So whatever your motivation is to learn, just remember that there's going to be payback for the effort that you put in. There's no doubt about it. Today's grammar point is covering the tag GW, how does what, to what degree, 副词程度. So this grammar tag is still focusing on adverbs like we did before, which again we like to express as how does what, because an adverb really is just expressing that there's an action and how was that action done, or how did it, is it, there's there a degree to which the action was done, is there a tone of voice to it, is there a denial? And so this one is about to what degree an action has happened. And so I could just say that my mouth is dry, or I could say my mouth is very dry, or I could say my mouth is extremely dry, which is the first sentence here. And what we want to understand is how can you express these different levels of degree using adverbs in Mandarin. So we're going to go through some sentences and show you some different ways of going about it. And let's take a look at the first sentence, which is actually a sentence that doesn't provide much degree at all. Or you could say it's a neutral degree, which is, the sentence is 我的口很干. And this just means my mouth is dry, which if you've seen our pronunciation mastery course, you'll be aware that when you have a noun connecting to an adjective and you don't need to add any particular extra emphasis to express degree, you use 很 simply to connect them. So it just means is. A lot of people translate 很 as meaning very, and there is one context where it means very, but the neutral way of expressing that a noun is an adjective, so like I am happy, 我很开心. That is the conjunction that you're going to use there is 很. So really in this situation, 很 isn't really an adverb, it's more of a conjunction, but we want to have that as your basis because that's how you express something that without sort of giving it any special degree. Now, if I were to say the sentence 我爱你, 我爱你, which just means I love you, if I were to add 很 here and say 我很爱你, that means I really love you. And so you're increasing the degree at that point. And the difference here is that 爱 or 喜欢 or 讨厌 or 恨, these are psychological verbs. These are verbs that they're just inside your emotional apparatus. So when you're talking about feelings and how you sort of verb the feeling, how you act the feeling out, like it's like if I love someone, it's in action to some degree, but it's sort of just existing in my psychology, then you can use 很 to increase the degree. So it's the difference between I love you and I really love you. But when you're just talking about a noun connecting to an adjective, like 我的口很干, then that is translated simply as is. So all the sentences from now on, we're going to have something that does either increase or decrease the degree of the verb. And the most common one that you'll probably see is 非常. So the next sentence is 这桌菜非常香. So 非常literally means non-ordinary. 非 is what you say to indicate N-O-N hyphen. So it's sort of like a prefix that means non, whatever comes after it. And then 常 means ordinary or regular. So non-ordinary, that's another way of saying very. So anything that's very something is, by very definition, by the fact that you're saying the word very, is not ordinary. So that's kind of an interesting thing, how Chinese can take such a simple word like very that we don't really think too much about in English and express it more clearly with its two characters. So 这桌菜非常香 means the table of food smells really great. And now if I were to just say 这桌菜很香, it would just be the table of food smells great. Not smells really great, just smells great. So by putting in the 非常, we're indicating that it's not just your average great smell, it's a really great smell. And so it's a step above 很. Now let's look at another one here. This is a quite useful one. And the character 还 is one that has a few different meanings, and this is one where it kind of expresses a degree. So here's the sentence. 这个医院看起来还干净. So 还干净. This means quite clean. This hospital, it's quite clean. It's passably clean. It's less intense than 非常. So when you see this, like a lot of times people will say 还不错, 还不错. And that means like, yeah, all right, not bad. It's passably okay, right? And so it's in between 很 and 非常. So 非常is like I'm expressing, yeah, this is really good. But 还is kind of, it's more of a, yeah, quite good. You can imagine somebody's walking into the hospital and they're going, okay, this is all right. It's fine. You know, they're not walking in aghast at how amazingly clean it is, but it's passably clean, so 还干净. And so that's kind of a mid-range level. Now let's look at another one. This one is not too much different from 非常. So if we look at the sentence, 他们真坏. This just means they're truly awful. And 真 is just another word you can choose to indicate some level of degree. So 真 means true or truly. And so in this case, it's just another way of expressing a similar idea. If you said 他们非常坏, it's pretty much the same. Like perhaps 真 is slightly higher than 非常, but it's really, you know, just as in English, there's lots of different ways to express the same idea, so is there in Chinese. So when it comes to 真 and 非常, they're virtually the same. Now next we have this sentence, 她今天看起来太漂亮了. And so this sentence uses tai, which means two, T-O-O. And so, like many things in, language, you'll sometimes mean it literally, and you'll sometimes mean it metaphorically or hyperbolically. So, in this sentence, I doubt that the speaker thinks that this woman is literally too beautiful. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, maybe if she was particularly resentful. She's too beautiful today. But for the most, it almost definitely is she's saying she's extraordinarily beautiful. She's so beautiful that she's too beautiful, but it's a hyperbolic statement, you know what I'm saying? So the sentence is meant to maybe even take it a step further than 非常 by saying she's too beautiful today. Now, to note about tai is that tai, when it's the object of the sentence, when it's the predicate of the sentence, the does what, it's kind of always paired with le. So it's tai, adjective like 漂亮 or 美 or some, or 好, 太好了 isn't just a way of saying fantastic. It's too good, right? And so 太漂亮了 is tai plus adjective plus le. And if you want to negate something, if you want to say 不太漂亮, you will not use le. So if you want to say 不太, not very, that's a way of lowering the degree in some way. So 太漂亮了 is raising the degree. It's like she's so beautiful. And then 不太漂亮 is more of a tactful way of saying she's not that beautiful, right? But if you're going to say 不太, then you don't use le. It's only in the positive that you use le. So that's a quite extreme one. How about the most extreme? If you're going to raise the degree to the highest level possible, you're going to want to use the character 最, which means most. So you can't go any higher than 最. So here's a sentence. 我的妈妈是最美的. So my mom is the most beautiful. So it's not possible to be more beautiful than your mom. This might be what like a 4-year-old would say. I think we all think our mothers are the most beautiful in the world when we're really young. So 最 it's the top shelf of adverbs. It's the highest you can go. So if we look at some other adjectives and see how 最 changes them, you have 高, which means high. 最高 means the highest. So Mount Everest is the 最高的 mountain, right? And so 好, that means good. 最好 is best, the best. 美, beautiful. 最美, most beautiful. So you get the idea. If you use 最 before the adjective, you can always increase the degree to the highest that it will go. But so far we've talked about raising the degree. What if we want to lower the degree? So if the initial sentence was 我的口很干, which just means my mouth is dry. So what if we want to say it's a little dry? It's not just dry. I want to express that it's lower in degree. Well, there you want to use 有点 or 有点儿. For this one, both North and South tend to say 有点儿, but a lot of people will also say 有点. But regardless, here's a sentence. 我白天肚子有点疼. So it's saying, during the day, my stomach was hurting a bit, a little bit. And so it's not saying, if you just said 我白天肚子疼, that would mean it was quite, it was painful. It was not a little painful, it was painful, right? And so by adding 有点, you kind of add a little tact to it, add a little bit of just expressing, okay, it's just a skosh, just a little bit, but there's a difference of degree there that the adverb once again shows. And the way you can understand this 有点 is that 有点 is really 有一点. They just omit the e because 点's a measure word, meaning a dot or a spot or a bit, right? So 有 has 一点. Has one bit. So it's a little way of saying, it's just another way of saying like that's a little bit of whatever comes after it. And so when you think of it like that, you recognize, okay, of course this means a bit because it's translates directly, has one bit. And they just omit the e because you can do that with any measure word. If it's e and not like, 5 or 10, if it's just 1, you can omit the 1 and you know that that's the missing number. So 有点, or 有点儿. And then the final sentence we'll talk about today is one that is, it's actually a great little grammatical structure in Chinese, and it's a way of saying, it's a way of lowering the degree to the lowest you can go. So 最 was to raise it to the highest degree. This one's going to be to lower it to the lowest degree, and it means like not even a little bit. So here's the sentence. 你一点也不关心我. So this is a great structure. 一点也不. And you can also have 一点都不. Yeah, or do are both okay. But this isn't the exact way we would express it in English. We would say, you don't care about me in the slightest. We'd say in the slightest, or not even a little bit, right? But the way it's actually structured in Chinese is you one bit also don't, and then insert whatever you think that is. So in this case, it's 关心 or care about. So you one bit also don't care about me. So it's like really emphasizing that there's no degree at all to which you care about, or whatever other action or adjective you want to put in there. And so it's quite harsh, I find. It's like if I had one bit, you'd also not get it. And so you can also use do, which means all. So you one bit all don't care about me. So either one is okay, they're interchangeable, but bear that in mind that these different levels can be established by changing the adverb. So you can go from everywhere, from not at all to the most, and a bunch in between. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the different adverbs of degree that there are. However, this should give you a good sense of how to recognize when the purpose of an adverb is to change the degree to which the action or the adjective is understood. So that is the grammar point GW, how does what, to what degree, 副词程度. So if you want to go into your Anki browser sidebar, find that tag, you can see all sentences that have this tag, and that'll give you even deeper an understanding of how this works. As always with grammar, just recognize this point so that you can notice it as you continue to input and keep it up as you move forward. Okay, so we're going to start off with our first question from Jennifer SWANSON in the Mandarin Blueprint Community Forum. And as a reminder, if any of you are on the Mandarin Blueprint course, whether it's the Pronunciation Mastery or any of the other courses, you will have access to the community forum, and there's lots of people posting there, and you can get a sense of how to do anything in the course, really, with more than just Luke or myself potentially answering you. It's actually quite lovely when we get responses from other people in the community. That's quite supportive. So here's Jennifer's post. She says, "Hello, just started today with the free trial, and know I'm going to just keep going already after finishing Unit 1 of the pronunciation course. My hubby has been taking Mandarin courses and learning online for 6 months, as he has suddenly found himself working in a new job where only a handful of people speak English and the rest speak Mandarin or Taiwanese, which is quite close to Mandarin. We plan to go to Taipei and immerse ourselves for a few weeks with the help of a tutor, but I want to not be a complete newbie when we go. My dream is to learn quite a bit over the next 7 months so as to be able to somewhat function while on the trip. I am not sure how much is possible between work and other commitments, but I am motivated to at least feel safe being able to read some words, and also because I have a lot of food allergies, so need to communicate those somehow too. Looking forward to this learning adventure." So yeah, you'll definitely be able to get a lot done in 7 months, Jennifer. And just as a point of sort of that'll come in very handy for you if you have a lot of food allergies. So the word for allergy in Chinese is 过敏, 过敏. And this word literally means overly sensitive. And it's a great word for helping you understand a grammatical structure in Chinese that, if you're just starting off, this might be a little bit advanced, but it will come in handy for you, and you can always save this video for when you're a little bit more advanced. But there's a structure which is 对, which means towards something, and then you say something about it. And if you want to say that you're allergic to something, you say towards, for example, imagine you're allergic to cats. You could say 对猫, which is the word for cat, 对猫过敏. 我对猫过敏. And that means to be allergic to cats because you towards cats overly sensitive, right? And you could just insert whatever food you're allergic to. So for example, suppose it's peanuts. A lot of people are allergic to peanuts. That's 花生. So 对花生过敏. 对花生过敏. And so if you ever want to say anything that you're allergic to, that's the structure. 对 towards, insert food, 过敏. And then you just want to add 我 to indicate that you're the one who is allergic to peanuts or cats or whatever food. And in 7 months, you're going to be able to get a lot of characters under your belt. You're going to be able to have a great deal of pronunciation understanding. And as I say, Taiwanese is not that different from Mandarin in terms of their overall language. There are some dialectical differences, but comparatively speaking, it's very close. And so your pronunciation will definitely be understood. And people will understand you if you're speaking more standard Mandarin. They'll understand you no problem. And so just keep it up. Just make sure it's every day. I know that you have a lot of work commitments, so maybe it's some days it's only 5 minutes. Just don't have any 0 days. That's the best advice I can give you, is to make sure that you don't let yourself go longer than a day, because habits they're so unforgiving and incredibly rewarding depending on which way you go. So if you let the habit go, it's very unforgiving. It's like you quickly will stop feeling like it's automatic. But if you do it every day, it starts to feel as if it's not even work to get it started. So I did in 2019, I took 0 days off from going to the gym. And I varied up the exercises. I didn't always do like heavy lifting or something. That's because that's unhealthy. I would sometimes just go and do an hour of yoga, or just do some cardio or something like that. But by doing that, now going to the gym, even though this year I'm not necessarily giving myself that 0 days off restriction, it's just most days I go because it just feels like it's a part of the routine. It's just a part of the daily sort of process. So as long as you do some every day, you'll make great progress in 7 months. So keep it up, Jennifer. Next, we have a couple of emails from Ramona, and I really liked these emails, so I thought we would talk about them a little bit. She says, "Hi, dear friends of the Chinese culture and language. Okay, I'm still shooting movies for my characters, and I'm on level 10 now. The Henza movie method takes me to places only I know, allows me to meet people I haven't seen in a while, and makes me relive my life in a different way. Question: now that I'm only doing the Henza movie method, mainly because my goal for the moment is to finally be able to read, do you think I should focus only on this or look for other type of stuff like listening to podcasts, etc.? It's quite funny, I'm living in China for 3 years, and I may say that I'm an analphabet." I think what she means is that she maybe is like, I guess she's saying I was anti-alphabet, or like I didn't have anything related to the alphabet. This had to stop. So here we are. I'm using your amazing and fun method to finally start being able to read. I hope you enjoyed my answer, and thank you for your efforts and passion. And P.S. I love your motivational videos after finishing at least 3 levels. They keep me moving ahead. The quarantine time here in China is a good time to learn more these days. Cheers, Ramona. And so in response to this question, while you're doing the Hanzi movie method, one thing you can do that is just a across the board good idea is to set up a speaker in your house and have it play Chinese podcasts all the time. You can download Chinese audio from various websites. There's Himalaya FM or Himalaya FM. There's Lizhi FM, which is just lots of Chinese podcasts on it. And sure, the app is in Chinese, but like you can actually just sort of click around because you're not going to be understanding what you're listening to anyway. It's just about immersion and getting yourself to hear the sounds in Chinese and getting used to it. So That said, though, I think there's something to be said for having a one-track mind and just going, I'm going to really work on these characters, because you're going to need to know them. Like, there's no doubt, there's no way around it. At some point, you're going to have to learn them. And who's to say that learning a bunch of characters first and then going back and learning a bunch of words and then doing more immersive things then is the wrong way to go? It's just that, for sure, having the Chinese on, even if you can't understand it, can only help. It can't hurt. So one of the things that Katsumoto always says is turn the volume down, don't turn it off. So like his idea is that you should always have the Chinese playing regardless of what's going on. And if it's too loud or it's interrupting your life, just turn it down to like level 1 volume, because then it won't be distracting. But when you go back to silence in your room or wherever you are, you'll hear it playing and you'll turn the volume back up. But if you were to turn it off, you might forget that it was on and forget to turn it back on. So the idea is that if you just never turn it off, there's a sort of glorious simplicity to it, and it just keeps giving you chances to notice. There's more opportunities to notice, and that's really all you need. And so great to hear that you enjoyed the motivational videos, and yeah, the quarantine can be a good time to get some work done. And Ramona sent another email that was it was great. She said, "Hi, dear Luke and Phil. L goes before P. That's why the order. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. It's quite funny. These days, I even thought about giving you a short feedback, but I've been caught up in the videos and a bit in the new virus challenge. As you may not remember, I'm living in Shanghai. And I'm still here, didn't leave the country. So yeah, I can appreciate that that's a challenge, but again, you're making the best of it. Okay, back to your great course. I'm done with the pronunciation and currently on level 9, shooting daily new movies for all my characters. I was not sure at the beginning if this will work, but I'm having a lot of fun. The Hanzi method gives me daily the chance to, quote-unquote, go to old apartments I've lived in, quote-unquote, visit old friends' houses, and quote-unquote, meet older new people from my life in quite unusual places sometimes. Your course gives me now, more than ever maybe, due to the home quarantine we're all facing at the moment, a great discipline. I'm not usually like that. I'm always excited about the new videos, and that's a great compliment, guys. Yes, be motivated to go on. It's worth it. I don't often read what people say, but I saw these days how one guy was complaining about the bad sound in the Anki cards. Not an issue at all in my case. She's referring to Rick, and Rick is fine. I totally don't mind him saying that the Anki cards could be higher volume. He's actually helping us increase the volume on those as we speak, perhaps. And so she says, anyways, I don't mean to upset anyone with this. It's just a reminder for you not to get discouraged by certain comments, but I'm sure you know that by now. Okay, I hope you made it this far in my email and you don't need any eye transplants. And hope to hear from you too. Not only a formal text, but also a more personal one if you want. How is your life in the quarantine, for example? Haha. I'm sure it's a great chance to work more on your beautiful course. Take care and all the best. E-hug from Ramona. Well, e-hug right back, Ramona. And one of the things that Ramona has pointed out here, which I thought is so cool, and she said it kind of alluded to it in both emails, is that the Hanzi method really does give you a chance to do a bit of an autobiography on your life. And, self-knowledge is really important in life, knowing where you're, the things that are likely to, quote-unquote, trigger you, the things that are, defining to who you are, and the people who made an impact on your life. Occasionally going back through and reminding yourself of those places, those people, those memories, is something that will likely be of benefit to you your whole life. I mean, why not occasionally go back and revisit these areas so that you can be grateful for the people who you've had in your life and grateful for your experiences. Maybe you go back to a time that wasn't so great, and then you can be grateful that you're not in that anymore. Or you can remember a time where somebody was really wonderful to you, and you can take that opportunity to maybe actually in real life send them a message and say thank you for that. And the Hanzi method kind of inherently encourages that type of reflection. And so I'm delighted to see that that's how it's going for you. And thank you for your concern about us. I know that Luke is doing fine in Chengdu at the moment. He always jokes that he and his wife, because she's in she's like 8 months pregnant. They don't do too much going out anyway, so the restrictions on movement aren't that big of a deal for them. And of course, I got out of the country. I'm in Thailand for the time being, so I'm doing fine. And just really appreciate your email, Ramona, and hope that you continue to do well in the course and continue to have fun revisiting your past sort of people and places and enjoying that reflection. Next, we have Tristan Knotts, an email from him. He says, "Hey guys, first of all, I want to say I love these motivational emails you send at the end of each level. Each one is quite encouraging and usually offers a nice little lesson or tip. I'm looking forward to reading many more of these. I also would like to say I've really been enjoying your method of learning Mandarin. I previously struggled, especially because so many words have the same pronunciation, and they would get all jumbled up in my head. It's clicked for me today when I was learning Dan and Dan. It was like, oh, it's totally fine that they have the same pronunciation. It actually works really well in creating two continuous movie scenes, right? Because if they're both pronounced Dan, they will take place in the same location with the same actor. I'm excited to see where this takes me going forward. I don't know if you two are currently living in China, but I'm in Beijing for the next few months, and we'll be traveling around the country after that. We'll be happy to chat or meet up if you're ever close by. Stay safe from the spooky coronavirus. Grateful customer, Tristan Knotts." Well, Tristan, I'm glad to see that you're having those clicks, those moments where you go, oh, these distinctions, as long as I attach the distinctions between, say, for example, Dan and Dan, which only have one component distinction, as long as I attach the distinctions to something I can clearly connect to, like an object or a person or a place, then suddenly all these things that seem overwhelming are not at all. They're just you finding another piece of your memory that you already have in your brain and just connecting it to the Chinese in the way that would, again, seemingly be too complicated from a small distinction perspective, but in your head it's just, oh, instead of it being a sun and a razor blade, it's Chuck Norris and a rooster. And so, like, that is clear enough when you compare those things. Chuck Norris is nothing like a sun, a rooster is nothing like a razor blade, but they actually represent a very small distinction, but you've turned it into a big distinction in your mind. And that allows you to have a very powerful set of tools at your disposal to remember anything. And I love how everybody's been so, concerned about the coronavirus. It's really, I'm very grateful that all of you have sent us such kind messages, and we'll use that as motivation to continue to smash out some great content. Next, we have an email from Belinda. She says, "Hi, Luke and Phil. The Mandarin Blueprint Method is absolute genius. I'm ethnically Chinese Indonesian, but the language was lost many generations ago. So being Australian, English has been my one and only language. I've started learning other languages before, although never Chinese. French, Japanese, Korean, German. Been there, tried that, didn't stick. To start learning Mandarin at 33 years old sounds crazy to most people, but the Mandarin Blueprint Method works in a way that apps and textbooks don't. I can self-pace my learning and take advantage of my photographic memory and overactive imagination. Suddenly, having such a Western tongue is not a disadvantage. You guys cater for the English-speaking habits so effectively. And through Anki, the constant practice is making the characters stick. It's only been a matter of weeks. I'm only on to level 13, but once I've gotten further in, I'd love to share my experience with this method. Perhaps being on a podcast or even pitching an article to a literary magazine or journal about how unlocking Mandarin has brought me closer to my heritage and opened up more creative possibilities. I'm a writer and plan to incorporate some of my language learnings in my second novel. My first novel is still out on submission to US publishers, fingers crossed. Some of my short stories have drawn on Chinese culture without me having an understanding of the language, so I'm excited to learn properly. Keep up the great work, and I can't wait to tell others about your amazing product. Kind regards, Belinda from Perth, Western Australia. Well, what a lovely email to receive. And, 33 years old is definitely not too late to start learning Mandarin, not at all. I'm 32, and I certainly plan on learning other languages before I shuffle off this mortal coil. You're definitely a writer. This is a very well-written email. And, I'm so pleased when people really click on what we're trying to do. Clearly, Belinda gets the, several layers in which we're trying to conceptualize the process of learning Mandarin. And it's just thrilling to see when somebody really connects with our methodology and sees how, this is going to work. That's the thing that's like really cool, is that everybody who goes through the Mandarin Blueprint Method long enough and gets to a far enough point, they realize, this will work, and I actually will succeed if I just keep going. When you realize that isn't the moment that you have succeeded, it's the moment that you go, I know that this works. I know this method works. I'm remembering things. Anki's letting them stick. I'm having less, it's getting easier to do the method. And then you go, then this is just a matter of continuing to walk the path. And so, great to hear that, Belinda, and best of luck. I hope that your first novel gets its submission to the U.S. publishers, and regardless, and if you want to get on the podcast at any point and talk about your experience, I'm sure everybody would love to hear all about that. Okay, next, a question from Rick on Pick a Prop for Me, and it's sort of just a practical question. He says, does this character refer to cooked or raw rice? I'm aware that they're distinguished in some Asian languages. Anyway, I think those measuring boxes they use in the markets full of raw rice is my prop. So, mi, by itself, or da mi, is indeed raw rice. And when you've cooked it, it's called mi fan, because fan is kind of the word you have for meal. So you can assume that if there's fan in the word, that it's somewhat, ready to eat. So that's how you can make that distinction. So da mi is literally like big rice. That's just the grain of rice. And, mi by itself can actually also mean meter, like a 1 meter or 2 meters, liang mi. But yeah, so if it's by itself or da mi, it's raw. If it's mi fan, it's cooked. Another one from Rick on the lesson, time to get real about sentences. So this is, in the first 2 phases of the course, we focus on characters and words. And then in phase 3, we start making you focus on the sentences for each word. So every time you unlock a word, you'll have at least 1 sentence per usage that uses that word. And so Rick says, I'm looking forward to experiencing this. I like to understand grammar, and it's said that adult language learners have the advantage over children because they can explicitly learn the grammar. And I've looked at programs like Glossica and felt skeptical, but I trust you guys because you're speaking from experience. Here goes. Well, thank you for your trust, Rick, and I'm sure you will not regret it. One of the things that's, kind of frustrating, I suppose, about acquiring grammar properly is that it doesn't really ever happen in a moment. Like, you sort of just continue to get input, and then when you output, it's correct, because you just have all of this time to consider, or not even consider, just all of this time spent hearing things that actually made sense from a grammatical perspective. And so okay, say this thing I've heard 100 times, and don't say this thing I've never heard before. And so when you're actually acquiring grammar correctly, you won't know it, so that's a little bit frustrating. But we've been starting to do these grammar lessons, but remember, it's always about giving your adult pattern recognition brain a little push in the right direction. You don't want to try to learn grammar too academically. The moment you find yourself thinking, this should actually be a relief to anybody learning language. The moment you find yourself thinking like, what? I don't really get this grammar point. How does it work? I'm confused. It's okay to just say, well, don't worry about being confused. Just read some more sentences. Just keep reading. Because the being confused about a grammar point is, again, it just indicates that you haven't seen it enough in context. Once you've seen sentences enough in a certain context, then when the grammar point is explained, it's more like I recognize that pattern, and now I'll recognize it a little more quickly than I did before because I saw the grammar point. But it should always be like a feeling of sort of enlightening what you already knew, or making clearer what you already knew. And if it's a feeling like, I don't understand this, then it's too early to be approaching that grammar point, or you're approaching it too academically. Another question from Rick on the make a movie for he, which means its most common meaning is and when you're connecting two nouns. But he says and is very abstract and hard to make a movie about, especially about and rather than just including it as a word in the script. Heisig, referring to James Heisig in his book Remembering the Simplified Hanzi, has this as harmony, which gives a bit more scope for images. Do you strongly advise and? Well, no, because, and I'm fine with you using harmony, because even though harmony is the secondary pronunciation for sure, it does sometimes mean harmony. 和谐 or 和蔼. These are words that are 和平. These are all words where it's got more of that harmony meaning. And while it's a secondary meaning, when it's used as and, it's so common that you'll easily be able to learn it top down, and you're not going to be confused. You're not going to think like, is it saying he, harmony, I? No, it's saying he and I, like, obviously. So like you'll get that no problem. You can learn the primary definition top down if you don't use it as and. We like to have the primary definition be the keyword, but sure, and is a bit of an abstract concept, and it can be sometimes harder to make scenes when they're very abstract, so switching it to harmony is fine. This is a comment on the bonus conversation connectors video. So this is when we started getting into some conversation connectors. And Rick points out that Tim Ferriss did a stunt in which he learned as much Tagalog as possible in 1 week, then was interviewed on Filipino TV. He explains that he relied a lot on what you call conversation connectors to sound fluent, while also filling in time. And that's exactly what the point of the conversation connectors are. Now, a lot of people have said that they find them to be a little bit tricky to use. So remember, they're bonus, and if you want to wait to focus on that deck until you're later on in the course, that's totally fine. They're a bonus thing to help you come up with some phrases that will help you buy some time while your brain catches up to what you're trying to learn. So if you're trying to learn a new language like Tagalog, which is the Filipino language, you want to figure out how to say things like, well, to tell you the truth, speaking frankly, if I were to take a moment to consider it, like all these things that you could say that would allow you to buy time and let your brain catch up to what you really want to say, it's just a great way to sound fluent, keep you talking, stop the other people from interrupting you, and it's very useful when you're in a second language, because there's always a lag time between when you decide what you want to say and actually saying it. And in your native language, that lag time is almost imperceptibly short. But in your second language, sometimes that can be a couple of seconds, and those couple of seconds can be vital. And if you just stop speaking for even 2 seconds, people are going to naturally jump in, because that's a lot of dead time, and people aren't necessarily, as much as people might try to be empathetic to the fact that you're learning a second language and you're not perfect at it yet. Nonetheless, they're probably a lot of times going to just be like, okay, well, you haven't spoken, so I'm going to jump in now. It's just their natural instinct. So the conversation connectors can definitely help with that. Now, let's see. Tom on It's a Word for Zhong. This answer was helpful, thanks. It's coming from last week. Would it be grammatically correct to say 我的儿子的电话 as opposed to 我儿子的电话 in this kind of context? Or do you always drop the first 的 when the thing being possessed, in this case my son, is possessing something else, in this case a phone? So he's saying like there's a double possession. It's like it's my son's phone, so there's two possessions there. So you can add the extra de. It just starts to sound repetitive because the ultimate subject of the sentence is 电话. So whose phone is it? It's 儿子的电话. well, whose son is it? It's 我的儿子. So since the ultimate thing is still the phone, you can just put the 的 before the phone. So 我儿子的电话. And this will come up a lot because sometimes you'll have several different what are called a 定语. So 电话 is the subject. So anything that's describing the subject is called a 定语. And there is this concept in grammar called 多项定语, which means multiple sort of types of. So you could think of, this is a type of phone. And the type of phone is the type that belongs to the son. And the type of son is the son that belongs to me, right? And so you could have multiple types of things before you get to the final subject, which is the phone. And if you do that, you can save the 的 for the end, because that kind of indicates to the listener that this is the point. The 电话 is the point. And anything that comes before it is just descriptors of it. And you can say 我的儿子的电话, but it starts to get a little bit like unnecessary to have so many 的. Because suppose there was more things, it would be like if you put a 的 in between each one, it would start to get kind of annoying to listen to. Okay, next we have a question from Ija on Vocab Unlocked from Pin, which means like products. And she says, hey guys, just need a little bit of help to wrap my head around the term 常备药品. So that sort of means like, so 药品 is pharmaceuticals or drugs in the drugstore. And then 常备, this has a couple of meanings, but it's sort of, 常 means regular or ordinary, and 备 means prepared. So like regularly prepared drugs or pharmaceuticals. And sort of like standing medicine, I understand why some of the dictionaries called this standing medicine. It's really better to say it's like a regular product. It's like regular drugs that we have at the drugstore anytime. The character breakdowns gave me the idea of frequently prepared medicine, for example, over-the-counter drugs that families tend to keep for fever, headaches, tummy aches, etc. Standby medicine, maybe. And I'm wondering what else can be paired with 常备. So you could say, so one of the ways that 常备 gets used is to mean standing, like a standing army. Like 常备军, that's your standing army. Or 常备兵, which is like that's a soldier who's a part of the standing army. And so that's an example where standing is correct. I think that the translation of standing medicine was incorrect. They were using the meaning of standing army, but with the concept of 药品, which is drugs or pharmaceuticals. It's not really the right pairing there. It should be more like your regular products or your products that you can expect to see all the time in the drugstore. And it also could be in your home. It depends on the context. If you were to say 我们家的常备药品 would mean the products or the drugs or pharmaceuticals that we always keep in our home. So like my parents always had Advil. So like Advil would be amongst their 常备药品, right? And then you could just say 常备产品, which just mean regular products, things that we always have, things that are just, and it's a little bit broader than 药品. 药品 specifically drugs or pharmaceuticals. 产品 is just any product. And but you could have something like a 常备队员, which is a regular player. So you could imagine becoming a regular on the, I don't know, some team, some minor league baseball team. So you're wanting to become a regular on the minor league baseball team. That would make you a 常备队员. And so we put some of those examples in the show notes if you want to check those out. But yeah, that's how it works. It's actually pretty straightforward. Next, we have Dawn Shannon Williams on Mandarin Initials Categorized. She just says, I was able to download the PDF. This information is a lifesaver. Wow, I wish you were around 7 years ago. I've spent so much time and money on, different Chinese products. And it's like, that's, I wish we had existed 7 years ago, but 7 years ago I didn't even start learning Chinese yet. So you'll be fine. You're going to learn so quickly with this method, and I'm so thrilled that you're seeing how useful it's going to be. It's really great to recognize how much time and money this really can save people. It's funny, we're obviously selling the course and we're trying to be a profitable business, but we are really saving people money if they want to learn Chinese properly. Because, compared to what you're going to pay for, all these other disparate services or tutors or, poorly designed courses at university, it's just not even close. So, all right. Tyson on Make a Movie for Qi. Just in case this is helpful to others, I wasn't sure if I'd remember to have 2 small strokes inside the nian component, which is basically 4 or 3 strokes, and it's like a little box. So I tweaked the props a little bit, ending up with these 3. So it's nian, R, and the Viking helmet. And so just flipped around. And so it's just a simple distinction. He's just basically choosing different props. And you can break down some of the characters into different prop groups than we suggested. And as long as you're clear on it and the prop groups do actually represent the character correctly, that's perfectly fine. It's always no problem to do that if you are ever worried about that. And so feel free to change them around as long as it makes sense. So you'll want to take a look at the props in the show notes to see what Tyson was talking about if you're not watching the video. All right, Patiri on pick a prop for Zhu, which is the component that's really just a little drop. It's a little small dot stroke. And this is an interesting one because it's like, I've really enjoyed having Patiri on the course because he's kind of... he's looking at things in great detail, which is always nice to have. But let's talk about what he says here. He says, there's a potential problem with this prop. In the system, the following character, Bai, is introduced as using this prop, and then the next one is Jin. But in the former, this stroke is written from top right to bottom left, and in the latter from top left to bottom right. Some other examples are Di, Dui, Ding, Jia, Feng, Bo, Zi, etc. Come to think of it, the only characters I come up with which use the top right to bottom left stroke are Bai and Zi. And so this to me is, and I totally can appreciate that Patiri is correct here, that this very small stroke, it's not even a full line. It's not even a full what's called pie or na. So na is the one we represent as banana, and pie is the one we represent as samurai sword. So it's basically... na is top left to bottom right, and pie is top right to bottom left. But they're full strokes. This is a very short stroke. And so our attitude towards this is making that distinction when it's so small is kind of missing the point of that you should always be going for things as simple as possible. And so the idea of switching the direction of the stroke doesn't mean you have to have a different prop for it. You can have the same prop because it's such a simple stroke, and if you want, in your scenes, you can imagine an eyedropper that's facing one way or the eyedropper is facing the other way and have the positioning change. But there's no real need to change the prop itself simply because of the direction in which this small stroke changes. Because the point here is to simplify to the greatest degree possible while still being distinct and memorable from other characters. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I'm sure most people on the course are concerned, considering that we've not gotten loads of complaints about this, this isn't a confusing enough difference to demand having 2 props. So if it doesn't require 2 props, go with the simpler option, have 1 prop. And so that's how we look at it, but I do appreciate how much detail you're looking at it in Patiri, and certainly nothing wrong with that. I just don't think it's actually necessary to create separate props. John Grist on new vocabulary unlocked for mei ge, and we put ge in parentheses next to mei because it really is just mei, meaning every, plus a measure word. So he says, I don't see the measure word in 人每天都要吃饭，为了身体好，我们每天都要走一走. And what's interesting here is that it's totally understandable why John doesn't see the measure word, because the measure word is actually day, tian, And I can see how that doesn't feel like a measure word, it just feels like the word for day. But day is a measure word. It's a measuring time and breaking it down into the category of day. So by saying 每天, we're essentially saying every measure word day, 天. And it's kind of totally understandable why that wouldn't appear to be a measure word, because you could say like 天黑了, which would mean like the sky has become dark. The sky has darkened, it's nighttime. And that would not be a measure word usage of 天, but when it's after 每天, then it's actually the measure word as compared to, for example, 每周 would mean every week, or 每年 would be every year. So in all of these situations, there can be time-based measure words that are just measuring time. 每一分钟, so that would be every minute. So that's how that works. Richard Krause on New Vocabulary Unlocked, 认真, and he says, what is the meaning or purpose of 的 in the first three sentences? So there are three 的 in Chinese. One of them is the most common possession 的, like 我的儿子, my son. That's the most common one. And then there's the 的, which indicates one of two things. It either indicates the that you put the verb before it, and then you indicate how the verb was done. So 跑得快, run fast, or 走得快, walk fast. And the 的 in between is connecting the verb and the adjective. But if you want to put the adjective before the verb, for example, 开心地跑, or 认真地学习, 认真地学习, that's study conscientiously, you'll use this third 的. And this 的 happens to be the same character as the word for 地, which is 地上, which means ground. But when it's in between an adjective and a verb, it's essentially turning the adjective into an adverb. So 认真 means conscientious. 认真的 means conscientiously. So 认真的学习, conscientiously study, right? And so it's a very useful way to turn an adjective into an adverb, and adverbs go before verbs, so that's why the 的 is there. Alina on New Vocabulary Unlocked for 身体. She says, this is a rare case where I could use my props to memorize this compound word. The mask, Jim Carrey, which is her prop for the full character 身, loses body because Joker, the prop for the left side of T, writes it down in the Death Note notebook, the prop for the right side of T, but. So she basically has three props to remember that 身体 means body. I was wondering if other people have found some more clues or interesting ideas for memorizing compound words. Some of them can be really troublesome for me to forge them into my mind, so I would appreciate some more ideas. So first of all, this is obviously not a requirement. What Alina has done here is a cool little thing that you can totally do if you want, but it's not a requirement. And I want to emphasize this again in case you haven't seen the podcast for a while, or you just haven't seen this part of the course. The reason why compound words do not require as much of a focused effort in the mnemonic system as characters do is because, well, there's two main reasons. So compound words have a connection to the lower layers of characters, components, and pinyin, and connections to the higher layers of sentences. So as you continue through the course, you'll be seeing more and more words in the context of sentences, which gives you more potential avenues to understand what it means. And the word 身体 comes up, I believe, in level 12, so you're not really into too many sentences by then. So it's still in that stage where there's a little bit less to work with to memorize a character, but it still can totally be done. It's just a matter of not really getting there yet, where you're getting the sentences coming in day to day. That said, I like what she did here. It's kind of cool that she could take the 3 props that were there and make a scene to remember it. But I think the key is just to have a strong enough image connection that you in the beginning of phase 2 in level 7, we talk about the Anki add-on for searching for images that you can put into your word connection cards. As long as that image is good enough and you think about something from your real life that relates to the character, the word, that should be enough to get you to the point where you remember what it means long enough so that when you see it in a sentence, it's not forgotten. So you don't have to memorize it to the point of like, I could never forget it. You just need to remember it well enough so that when you start to see it in lots of sentences, you haven't completely forgotten what it is. You're like, shinti, oh yeah, that was that word that meant body. And even though I didn't totally memorize it, now I'm seeing it in a sentence, which slightly solidifies my understanding of it more. And then, before you know it, you'll have seen it in hundreds of sentences and it will be easily memorable. So the key is just to always think about, how does this word relate to my real life? Every single word in the foundation course is a word whose translation you already have some experience with in your life, because they're basic words. Nothing in the foundation course is specialized. So once you get beyond your foundational knowledge and you get to specialized knowledge, then it's quite possible that you haven't had experience with the word in your life. But nothing in the foundation course for any adult is something that you haven't come to some experience with. So just think about, what do I know about this word already? What images come to mind? What personal experiences come to mind? And just make sure it gets into the flashcard. And then that should be enough to at least hold the memory in your sort of short to midterm memory long enough so that you can see it in sentences, which will get it into your long-term memory. Patiri asks a question that's a good question about the words nanda and nuda. And so he says, are nanda and nuda normal words or rare ones just used here because characters for other words aren't introduced yet? Is there a video about the different words to describe the genders? So, nanda, nuda. So by saying nanda, you're basically saying nanda something, right? So when you just say nanda, you're omitting what's probably obvious in the context. So if I say nanda, 他是男的, suppose I was pointing towards a dog, right? I might say 他是男的. If I wanted to be a little bit more accurate, I would say 他是公的, but that's because animals are usually separated by 公 for males and 母 for females. But still, you could say 他是男的, and the Chinese person you're talking to would understand, but they'd also understand that you mean 他是男的狗 or dog. 他是男的 dog. You don't need to say the word for dog, which is go. You don't need to say that for them to understand. So 男的女的, there's an implied word that's omitted after 的. So if I was pointing to a woman and I said 她是女的, the implication is that I'm saying 她是女的人, but you don't need to put 人 in there because it's obvious from the context. So 男的女的 will definitely be used fairly frequently, and really anytime you see that kind of sort of omission after the 的, it's because whatever the noun would be that's there is clear through the context of the situation, and so it's just omitted. And so yeah, you could say 男人女人, that would mean, man or woman. But some contexts you'll say it's more like you want to be descriptive, and when you want to be descriptive you'll say 男的女的. I'm describing this person, and so for that reason I'll use 男的女的, or loads of other words where you would leave out the whatever comes after 的, because it's obvious. Next, a message comment on level 14 complete from Attilio. He says, hi all, the past year has been a most enjoyable ride with Mandarin Blueprint. While I am nowhere near where I would like to be with my Mandarin, at least spoken Mandarin, I must say that I am gaining more confidence trying what I've learned so far when I am at my workplace, where I'm fortunate to have native Chinese and Taiwanese colleagues who help me with my mistakes and also encourage me to keep practicing my Mandarin. On a side note, if you ever want to have some fun, watch a YouTuber named Xiaoma, Little Pony. He's a young American, at least I think he's American. He is fluent in Mandarin and also some Cantonese. He randomly walks up to native Chinese speakers on the streets of China and New York City and starts off by asking questions in English and then shifts to Mandarin. I enjoy his videos and envy his fluency in Mandarin. Cheers. Yeah, I think I've seen that guy before. He's pretty cool. And Attilio is apparently moving through the course relatively methodically, because after a year, if you're only on level 14, you're moving through it, fairly slowly. But nonetheless, though, I actually have a lot of admiration for people who do it like that, because it's just a reminder that there's no rule about how quickly or slowly you move through the course. It's just about not making zero progress. So yeah, if you're at level 14, you're not going to be at where you want to be with Mandarin yet. I mean, nobody really ever gets to exactly where they want to be. I mean, I could be better at Mandarin. Luke could be better at Mandarin. Our friend Scott, who hosts major events and is emceeing huge stadium-filled people, he could have better Mandarin. Like, there's always a higher goal. But you have the right attitude, because you're recognizing that, hey, I'm not where I am, but I have these people around me who are encouraging, and I can keep growing from this place. So excellent stuff. It's really great to hear that, and thanks for the recommendation about Xiaoma. Next, we have Yasmin on bonus How to Develop Great Study Habits Part 4, Belief. She quotes one of the things I say in the video. She says, "It's a decision, not a desire." These words are so true. We can sit around all day wishing for something, but unless you make the decision to go for it, it won't happen. Great motivational video. You're one of those positive people you were talking about. Yeah, sure. I think I mentioned in the video that you want to stick around positive people when it comes to the journey. Like, you don't want people around who are like, "Why are you learning Chinese? What's the point of that? Like, what? It's the hardest language in the world. Why? It's just going to take you forever." Like, that whole sort of negative attitude, as opposed to just going like, "What are you going to do today to get better? Do it. Go for it. You can do it. No doubt about it." It's not like it's going to be an easy journey, but there's not a question as to whether or not you can do it. So it really is a decision. And so I'm glad to hear that connected with you, Yasmin, and keep it up. All right, next we're going to move on to some movie scene shares. This is the good stuff. This is where people share their movie scenes in full, and I'll give them a little critique. So first we have Tyson on Make a Movie for Chao, which means noisy. Hearing a lot of noise, my CH actor busts into the room to find the mouth trying to use sound waves to move a badminton shuttlecock, which is the other component, across the room. It's so noisy that the mouth can't hear CH shouting for him to stop. So much noise. Yeah, so I can imagine this, so he's trying to use sound waves, which is a way we can try to visually represent sound. And again, when you're coming up with these mnemonic scenes, you can make anything happen, so you can imagine the sound waves. And he's trying to move the badminton shuttlecock across the room, which is something I can imagine potentially moving from the sound waves because it's quite light. And it's so noisy that the mouth can't hear the CH actor shouting for him to stop, which you could easily display. You could just have that situation of imagining so much noise, and then you see him going like, but you can't hear it over the din, as it were. So that's a great scene. I love it. Kent on Make a Movie for Yo. Yadina is in the living room, so I guess that's his actress for YI. Yadina is in the living room of my OU set. She is auditioning new actors for a remake of Dirty Dancing. A werewolf is first up, and they are set to do the famous lift, from Dirty Dancing. You have to practice this a lot. You will have to have this perfected if you want to be in the movie. So have, in this case, is, yo means possess or have. So he's kind of doubling up the meaning of have, because there's have as in possess, and then there's have like have to, as in you must. And so he's kind of mixing the English homonyms here. And, I think that this scene is, okay. It's got the werewolf, and although I'm wondering about the second prop here. A werewolf is first up, and they're to do the famous lift. You have to practice a lot. You have to have this perfect if you want to be in the movie. I'm not seeing where the other prop is coming in. So the werewolf, I'm sure, is the representation of moon, because we had the moon component there at the bottom. Werewolf comes out at the full moon, so that makes sense. But I'm not seeing the holster prop in this scene, so that's one element that we would need to add. And then the only thing I worry about is that the meaning of the character only comes out in the words that I guess is the werewolf is saying, or Edina is saying. And so that is probably not enough to remember. You want to get something that really indicates have, and maybe you could use contrast, where somebody has nothing, like they're a beggar on the street, or they're completely impoverished and they have nothing and they go to having something. Or somebody doesn't have a voice and then they have the voice, or maybe you show a montage of going from not having any dancing skills to having dancing skills. And I mean, that last one I said even is a little bit tenuous, but that would be a bit better, because then you could show the montage of, I don't know how to dance at all and I don't have any skills, and then you do the montage and now they have the skills. It's possible that would work a little bit better. I just worry that only the words there isn't going to stick long enough, because that's what we want with memory, is to have things that are more visual. Kent again on Make a Movie for Sway, which means casual. I'm talking to Superman in the kitchen of my EI set. All right, so we got the pronunciation already taken care of. Sway. He just got a new iPhone and wants to try out the wide angle feature. Maybe I'll take a picture of the entire Berlin Wall, he says. That's a great idea. Will you just fly over there and do that? I ask. No, I'm going casual as Clark Kent. So I'll just take a flying carpet so I don't get recognized. Yeah, sure. So I guess the iPhone is the representation of the, right, yeah, it's probably the representation of yo, because everybody has to have their iPhone all the time. The Berlin Wall is the left side component, and the magic carpet's the component there. I think this one works better because Superman's alter ego of Clark Kent is, comparatively more casual. So I think that could potentially get to work. Perhaps you want to imagine Clark Kent and he's like in a Hawaiian shirt and he's got flip-flops on or something. However you like to imagine casual. Maybe he's set up a hammock on top of his flying carpet so he can look even more casual. But yeah, that's the general idea. That's just some stuff to maybe make it a little clearer about the meaning, but it is pretty good. I like that. It's a bit clearer than your previous one, so that's good. And then next we have Kent again on Make a Movie for Yo, which means friend or friendship. Edina is in the living room of my OU set. She is still auditioning for the male lead for the remake of Dirty Dancing. So he's connecting those two scenes here. That's good. Because the werewolf didn't work out, she has decided to ask Baby to bring in a friend to try out. So I guess Baby's the representation of the bottom component here. Baby decided she would bring her close friend Ernie. Oh no, he's saying Ernie is the representation of Yo. Edina says, I'm glad you were such close friends. That way you can practice the lift more often. Okay, so I guess that Baby must be the representation of the sort of holster, what we would call the holster component, but I guess Kent went with a different component there, which is fine. And the idea that a baby could be friends with Ernie from Bert and Ernie definitely makes sense. I think that's fine. Once again, I think there's a little bit too much speech in this one, if possible. Like, if you can show friendship through some other form, like whether it's, we've talked before about how you could do some kind of a montage of things that you associate specifically with friends, whatever that is. But again, there's nothing too wrong with this scene. It's just perhaps a little bit too much speaking. Next, we have Tristan on Make a Movie for Tongue, which means to sing. Charlie is in the bathroom of the ANG set, and in his towel, singing Pocket Full of Sunshine as the mouth and sons sing along in the mirror. Okay, sure. Yeah, that's, you've got the two sons and you've got the mouth, and, yeah, singing Pocket Full of Sunshine definitely is a good one there. I like the simplicity of that scene. It's straightforward. You've got, the singing happening, and I mean, singing is a pretty straightforward keyword. You can represent that one visually quite easily, and I like how the sons are singing along as well. That's kind of hilarious. The mouth makes sense, but you have to give the sons faces and have them sing too. That works out. Can't I make a movie for Fa? Flavor Flav is out front, first tone of my A set. Bernie sees him and thinks he is breaking in. She pulls out her samurai sword, sending a drop of blood through the air, and screams, "I'm going to send you to your maker, you thief." I think that one's fine, because, send you to your maker, and that, I'm going to send you to meet your maker. That's fair enough. And so sure, it's like, have the facial expression, the murderous facial expression, the determination, and perhaps when she swings the samurai sword, the Flavor Flav gets, sort of sent right up to heaven, just shot up into the sky, and that should work out just fine. Maybe as she's hitting Flavor Flav, he gets hit up into the sky and gets folded into an envelope as it's happening, because that's what you're doing. You're sending it out. So that works out. Nice. Tyson on Make a Movie for Jian, to see. This scene relies more on its comedic feeling. I'm in the backyard of my AN set with my JI actor. She thinks that she saw the cardboard box behind me move, and she also thinks that she caught a glimpse of two legs moving it. Did you see that? See what? It happens again. You didn't see that? See what? How could you not see that? Etc. So sure, I can imagine that's I don't even think that's that bad of a representation of C, because that's a good sort of connection with the idea of C. Is like, did you see that? And then he turns around, and the comedic element is like, well, no, now it's not moving anymore, and then it moves again. Did you see it? No. So sure, I think that's a great way of representing C. Perfect scene. Excellent. Can't on Make a Movie for Feng, which means wind. I'm walking into the front door, first tone of work, ENG, one day, and I see Flavor Flav at the valet stand, which is the outer component, and he's putting a pair of scissors, the inner component, into the stand. What are you doing that for? I ask. Flav answers, "Oh, that is just because of the wind, just using these as a paperweight. By the way, did I ever tell you about the time..." "Sorry, Flav," I interject. "I don't really have time, and you tend to be awfully long-winded." Okay, sure. Well, perhaps what you could do to make it even clearer that there's wind involved and that the scissors are serving as a paperweight is that when he starts to talk, you can actually represent the idea of him being long-winded by big gusts of wind coming out of his mouth and maybe causing the scissors to slightly move in the wind of his long-winded speech. So that could be another way to just make that a little clearer, but otherwise I like it. It's good. Kent on Make a Movie for Na, which means that. Amy, the A, I guess it's maybe her place, is sponsoring the traveling exhibit of the Berlin Wall in her backyard, fourth tone. Noah has come over to help assemble it. Amy points to some barbed wire and says, "Pick that up and put that over there," which is not, which is sort of, that and there both use that same character. And so that's probably fine because, you've got the components involved, and that and this are very super abstract. So the fact that she's pointing at the things over there, take that and put that there, and then, there's the perspective from Amy is that she's not here with this, it's that and there, and that's what na is all about. It's all about what's not, directly on your person, because that's what the type of thing you would use to say this or here, and no, it's over there, so it's there and that. So that's, clear enough, and we've got the barbed wire, we've got the Berlin Wall. I think that should be fine. Now, next, Kent continues with the character na. I'm in the living room, third tone of Amy's, looking out on Noah, and Amy assembling the traveling Berlin Wall. So it's like a connection to the previous scene. Just as they are adding barbed wire to the wall, a howler, which is the representation of Ko, shows up and asks, "Where did that come from? Which one of you fools is responsible?" So where, in this case, is nar, and which is na. And so I like that. So, yeah, so I think that the idea of the howler coming in being indignant is a good way to represent the idea of which or where, because when you're asking those types of questions, you're usually kind of indignant. So that's fine. That makes sense. Next, we have Tyson on Make a Movie for Zhen, which means true or genuine. Scene for Zhen. Discussion with my friend Jerry outside of my EN set. I asked him what the measure of truth is. He pulls out his measuring tape, which is the top component, and 2 chopsticks, the bottom component, and says, "We can find out." Jerry, we can't get the measure of the truth that way. I love that. So the way Jerry thinks the measure of truth is going to happen is through some chopsticks and a measuring tape. Hey, maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve, but I can see how that's sort of silly. Nice. Next, we have Belinda on Make a Movie for He. She says, so this is the character for and that actually Rick brought up earlier, saying, could we use harmony for this? But she's going to use and. She says, my E set is a department store I used to work at. So for this one, I have comedian Hassan Minhaj, the manager, trying to find the Rolling Stones mouth employee who's gone missing from the shop floor. Hassan finds the mouth lounging around in the break room kitchen, chewing on a stalk of wheat. So we've got the 2 props involved now, which the mouth immediately spits out on being caught. Hassan is flabbergasted and can only yell with, "And what do you think you're doing?" So yeah, like this is a way of kind of, I guess, getting across the idea of and again, it's speech, but it's an abstract concept, so I can see how this might work. Certainly, if you can find a way to perhaps get across options that are happening, because like and gives you it tends to be like 2 things, right? This and that. So if there's 2 options you can have, like maybe Hassan walks in and finds the mouth lounging around the break room, and he's chewing a stalk of wheat and Hassan himself, like, I don't know, when Hassan walks in and he starts to get eaten, he's like, you're gonna eat me, like you're gonna eat me too, wheat and me, perhaps. I mean, something where there's 2 choices will make that a little bit clearer, I think. But this will probably work, because again, when you have something like this, you are getting the actor, you are getting the props, you are getting everything involved. It's just maybe the meaning isn't expressed clearly enough, but it's still likely going to be memorable because this character is so common. So I think you'll be all right. Belinda on Make a Movie for Bao. She says, I have Ben Affleck arriving at a birthday party at my AO set friend's house. He's outside the entrance struggling to hold the gift of a snakeskin purse in a snakeskin box with his broken arm, which is in a cast, all wrapped up, while he uses his free hand to ring the doorbell. So I like this situation. So everything's very clear. The character means bao to, which is a bag, or in this case, the snakeskin purse. And it's a gift, so it's a snakeskin box. I like that. Adds a little extra flavor. And he's got his arm in a cast, which is kind of memorable because you can imagine him struggling, and that's the representation of the wrapped up component. So that's all clear, and perfect scene. Love it. Everything's very clear, and there's also that struggle that makes it a bit more memorable as well, and his look of frustration as he's trying to get the bag and ring the doorbell. Belinda again on Make a Movie for Bay, which means cup or glass. Ben Affleck is at the entrance of my old high school, the EI set, drinking a cup of eggnog. So you've got cup in here already. Scrooge comes out to point at the nearby Christmas tree. So Scrooge is probably her representation of Bu, which is the right side component, and the Christmas tree is the left side. So Scrooge comes out to point at the nearby Christmas tree, which has a big red circular no band sign to the right of it. Scrooge says, "Bah humbug," and knocks the drink out of Ben's hand, which makes Ben yell, "Hey, that's my cup." So Yeah, I think this is okay. I'm not sure what Scrooge is the representation of, because now I see that there's a sign of no and banned on the Christmas tree. So I'm not sure exactly how Scrooge fits into the story, because Ben Affleck is a representation of B, the high school is EI. We're outside the entrance for First Tone. We've got the representation of the tree was Christmas tree, and this no band sign on the Christmas tree itself, which I think is the representation of Boo. So I'm not exactly sure where Scrooge fits into this, unless he's like an extra with the Christmas tree, perhaps. Although that would be a little bit bending the rules. We don't usually do extras with props. We do extras with actors. But, still though, I like the scene. I think it's a funny scene. So I think that is probably memorable in and of itself. And also, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe Scrooge is the representation of Boo. Because, of course, he was so miserly, so he would say no to any kind of acts of charity. Belinda, make a movie for Gong. So this is like public. I went with the musical triangle prop rather than the elbow. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it looks like a triangle. Thanks for the suggestion in the comments a few vids back. So I have Graham Norton downtown wanting to busk with his triangle, even though he's not very good. He steps outside a government building, her ONG set, but he's not sure if it's the best place. So he gets out his magic 8-ball, the top component, and asks if he should start playing here. After being shaken, the magic 8-ball says, "No way, you're in public." So I think that that's fine. I think that the idea that it's outside a government building is actually fortuitous, because a government building is, of course, a public building. It's a public sort of service. The public servants live in the government building, or work in the government building. So that alone might be okay. And of course, busking in public is a public event anyway. You can maybe imagine some public buses going by, or imagine it near a public park. But yeah, there's enough in there to be able to make that very clear. If you make some small adjustments. Having the word public come up on the 8-ball is probably not enough, but there's enough in the environment to make the idea of public get across that you should be okay. Belinda, make a movie for Thai. My AI set is actually a mall. In the food court kitchen, there's an empty stage. At the front of the stage, there's a big Rolling Stones mouth sign, and people in the food court start getting excited, thinking the Rolling Stones are going to play a surprise pop-up concert. But instead, a platform rises from the stage, and it's just Tom Hanks playing the triangle. Right, so we got the triangle on the top, we got the Rolling Stones mouth, the stage itself is a representation of the meaning, and then the food court of the mall is the second tone, and Tom Hanks is the actor. So I like it. And that's, of course, you have the build-up of the excitement and then the disappointment. Although, how could you be disappointed at Tom Hanks playing triangle? But, still, it's going to be Mick Jagger, and then it's Tom Hanks. And so that's a good scene. I like it. Perfect. Ija, make a movie for Lai, which means to rely on. Her actor is Leonardo DiCaprio at her neighborhood IKEA. And the props are a bouquet of roses, a courier guy on a motorbike. Leo just came back from fighting bears and had forgotten his mom's birthday. Nice reference to The Revenant. He was fidgeting in the parking lot of my neighbor's IKEA, holding a bouquet of roses. Just like everyone else, he relied a lot on online services to get things done. He used an app to call for a rider, the courier guy arrived, and quickly went off to dispatch Leo's roses. Technology is so reliable these days. So sure, we've got a lot of relying ideas in here. I think that's probably clear enough. Maybe one of the things that could happen is that his phone briefly doesn't work or something, and he freaks out because he relies on it. And then maybe it comes back on to finish the scene. But you could have a moment like that where he has this panic because the thing he relies on is not there. But otherwise, it's good. Ija, make a movie for Li, which means to be away from or to leave. The actor is Lady Gaga inside the kitchen of her childhood home. And the props are a brain in a jar, glass cover, and a slice of pizza. Lady Gaga was happily walking into my childhood kitchen with a slice of pizza when she saw a brain in a jar on the kitchen counter. she immediately felt grossed out by the sight of the raw organ. To protect her pizza from unwanted splashes, she covered it with a glass cover and walked away from it to go to the sink to puke. Okay, so she had to be away from the raw organ. And to protect her pizza from unwanted splashes, she gets the glass cover in, which is a logical reason why it would need to be there, because of the the gross brain in the tank. So awesome. I like it, and there's clearly some distance that needs to be had, some boundaries that need to be drawn, and so that's good. I like it. This is more of it's not a movie scene share, it's a suggestion for the movie for 跳舞的舞, which is kind of a complex character. And so Julian says, this one is so complex, to make it simpler, I combined the whole top part, everything but the eye mask and zombie components, into a zipper component. And I totally can see this. This is fine because the top part does kind of look like a zipper, and that's enough. Like, it just has to look like a zipper for you to remember it. So actually I think that's fine, and that makes it easier to remember because you have fewer props. So if that's what you want to do for this character, make the top bit a zipper, that's fine, and that'll make it easier. Belinda on Make a Movie for Jue, so this will be to decide. The kitchen/break room area of my E set is completely iced over. Icicles like an ice cave. Clifford the big red dog is absolutely freezing. My JU actor can't find any blankets, but there is a 2-part horse costume. The fleecy type, like that of a mascot. He says Clifford has to decide whether to wear it to warm up or whether it's just too silly. Clifford decides to wear it, so the actor puts the horse head on Clifford. So you're creating a scenario where there's a need, which is that Clifford is absolutely freezing, and that's done so by the ice. And of course the ice is one of the props, and Clifford's the big red dog there, and then the horse head's the final prop. And the decision comes down to whether or not he wants to be silly or, let dignity be damned and wear the crazy, weird horse head. And so I like that, because that is a choice that, you have to make if you're in somewhat of a desperate situation. You just go, I don't care if this, like, for example, a really masculine looking guy wearing some kind of like very feminine looking pink coat to warm up or something like that. You can imagine he'd be like, oh, what a tough decision. Do I keep my dignity or do I just accept that I'm too cold? I like it. Belinda on Make a Movie for Dong, which means basically to move. Daniel Radcliffe is directing an action movie in the backyard of my ONG work building. So it's like an action type of situation. Daniel yells action, and the scene starts with a big angry cloud coming from the left to chase a Power Ranger. Okay, cool. So her representation of Lee is a Power Ranger. I like that. That's a good representation. And it's just a straightforward situation, because the idea of action and like the snapping of the I forgot what that thing's called, but we don't know what we're talking about in the in movies. And the idea of having that is you can easily visually represent that, and then the big angry cloud coming from the left to chase a Power Ranger. I mean, that alone is pretty crazy, so I think that's awesome. Next, Belinda on Make a Movie for He, which is river. Hassan Minaj goes to the kitchen/break room of the E store, where he works for a drink of water. He's absolutely parched. Barack Obama is at the water cooler and lifts out the entire bottle so he can hand it to the thirsty Hassan. On taking a big gulp, Hassan spits it out and says, "This is absolutely foul," to which Obama says, "Oops, I forgot this water is from the river. We have to filter it first." Okay, gotcha. So, so Obama's a representation of the right component because he had the "Yes, we can" motto. And so that's the character itself means can, so it's the "Yes, we can" motto. And then, since we have to have water involved, the idea of river water, that's like, you can imagine the kind of gross feeling of that. And, if you wanted to add a little bit more to the scene to make it even clearer, maybe when Hassan spits out the river water, it actually lands on the floor and creates a little river on the floor. I mean, that wouldn't happen physically, but it's your imagination, so you can just make it a little clearer by doing that. But otherwise, I love that scene. It's a great scene. Okay, Tyson on Make a Movie for Su. Because Su means to accuse, to complain, to tell, I designed a scene that combines these three. There's a court proceeding in my old backyard, childhood home. Superman is being charged with damaging a lot of property. He is being restrained by a small half-kilo weight, which is the one of the components there, made of kryptonite, and a threatening water dropper filled with kryptonite. Okay, nice. So that's the two components on the right side. Because there are so many people gathered, I have to use a megaphone, the left side component, to tell all the complaints that he's accused of. Right, so this has got that courtroom scene to it, despite being in the backyard of a childhood home, and it logically consistent because the half-kilo weight is kryptonite, and there's kryptonite in the water dropper, which gets the actor to influence the props, which you gotta like. And the megaphone's necessary because there's so many people around, and then it starts the sort of formal court proceedings, which expresses the meaning quite well. So perfect. Awesome. Jack on Make a Movie for Jian, which means simple. J.I. character jumping up and down on the bed, shaking the bamboos above her head and singing Simply Irresistible to the beat of a metronome. So yeah, the metronome's the lower part because of the intervals. The bamboo is the upper component, and Simply Irresistible is the way of getting across the idea of simple. And speaking of simple, that's a very simple scene that gets everything across very quickly. Love to see that type of stuff, Jack. So well done. That's awesome. And then Jack, final one for today, Jack on Make a Movie for Si, as in 公司 or operation or operator. The soundtrack sung by the Rolling Stones mouth is Smooth Operator. And so that's perfect. I love when you get music involved. Obviously, there's got to be more to that scene, but that's it. Once you have that as your keyword connection, it makes everything else kind of just fall into place quite naturally. So thank you for listening again today, guys. A bit of a long one today, but we're always happy to get so many great submissions each week. And once again, hugely grateful to everybody for their participation in the Mandarin Blueprint Method course. Please feel free to go to mandarinblueprint.com to learn more if you're not already on the course. And if you are in the course, please leave us a review on Facebook or Google Reviews, and leave us a review on iTunes for the podcast. And it would just be great to get some more shares of the course around social media and all that. So thanks again. My name's Phil Crimmins, and we'll see you next week.